In 1983, Gene Simmons met Shannon Tweed at the Playboy Mansion. It took him 28 years to marry her, but their 2011 wedding wasn't about love. It was about covering up a scandal that almost destroyed his family. Recently, discovered footage from their reality show reveals conversations that were never meant to be public. His son was caught in a plagiarism scandal. Legal documents from 2025 mention incidents involving female employees. The man who claimed to have slept with 4,800 women is now facing consequences that go far beyond his wild reputation. Gene Simmons wasn't always Gene Simmons. He was born as Chaim Witz on August 25, 1949 in Haifa, Israel. His mother, Flora Klein, had just survived hell. She was born in Hungary in 1925 and had barely escaped the Nazi concentration camps. His father, parents Yohiel Witz, also escaped Hungary and married Flora in 1946. They moved to Israel in 1947, just before the state was born, with British forces still blocking the way. Their past was full of pain, and that pain quietly echoed through everything would become. By the time he turned 6 in 1955, things got worse. His parents' marriage broke apart mostly because they didn't have money. His father stayed in Israel. His mother raised him alone in Tat Carmel. She worked nearly every day in factories sewing buttons just to feed them. Sometimes they only had bread and milk for dinner. At age 7, Chaim was already trying to help. He picked wild fruit with a friend and sold it by the roadside. He knew what struggle meant. He made his first winter coat out of an army blanket. The cold didn't care, but he had no other choice. His mother worked until late at night, and he often cried himself to sleep in an empty house. The school, it didn't get any easier. Other kids bullied him for being different. Even in post-war Israel, some of the hate his mother had escaped followed him into the classroom. But something else found him too. Comic books, American ones, Spider-Man, Superman, they became his escape. He couldn't even read English yet, but he tried anyway. By age 7, he was already speaking Hebrew, Hungarian, and Turkish. And now he was secretly picking up English too. All because he wanted to understand the heroes in those comics. In a world still healing from war, where food was limited and hope felt rare, those stories gave him something to hold on to. His mother didn't talk much about what she'd been through, but the pain was always there. By 1957, Chaim had started to see it more clearly. She had been just 14 when the Nazis forced her into labor picking potatoes in fields while soldiers watched with guns. She wore clothes marked with crosses, moving between camps, watching her world vanish one relative at a time. She didn't need to explain it with words. Her silence, her overprotectiveness, and the way she sometimes cried without reason. Chaim understood it left something in him, too. A need to never feel weak, to never let anyone see him break. That same year, in 1957, Flora made a decision that would change everything. With barely anything to her name, she and 8-year-old Chaim left Israel. They arrived in Queens, New York, with no money, no English, and no family waiting. His father stayed behind, remarried, and started a new life. Chaim never saw him again. He became Eugene, clean, and started over. Flush toilets and TV dinners amazed him. But adapting wasn't easy. Flora worked long hours in Brooklyn factories, sometimes 15 hours a day. Gene had to take care of himself with babysitters and learn the rules of a strange new world. He went to Jewish school for a while, but he didn't fit in. Then he switched to public school. He graduated from Newtown High in 1967. At first, kids teased him for how he talked. His accent made him feel like a stranger everywhere he went. But he didn't let it break him. He sold cactuses door to door. He picked fruit Again, just like he did in Israel. Every insult, every rejection, it made him try harder. He started learning English faster by watching TV and reading more comics. That's when his obsession with pop culture exploded. By 1959, at just 9 years old, he legally changed his name again, this time to Gene Clean. He picked Gene after cowboy actors like Gene Autry. He was all in on being American now, even if he still lived in a cramped apartment with his mother and cousins. He fell in love with television, especially the Ed Sullivan Show. When the Beatles appeared on February 9, 1964, something inside him lit up. He wanted that life. He wanted the stage, the fame. He wanted to feel like someone, but inside he still felt like the boy with nothing. He even pretended to be British sometimes, copying the Beatles' accents just to fit in. Girls liked it. He was awkward, unsure, going through the messy changes of being a teenager, but his charm was slowly growing. During the 1960s, Gene took whatever job he could find. He worked in butcher shops slicing meat. He worked in delis behind the counter. He earned just $1,025 an hour, but he saved every bit of it. Poverty had taught him to count every cent. He stayed away from alcohol even at parties. He noticed how older guys got drunk and sloppy. He stayed sharp. That's how he got girls. He said it himself. He used his clarity while everyone else lost theirs. He started learning guitar, practicing constantly. After seeing the Beatles on TV, he couldn't stop. He formed little bands and started building his future while still in school. In 1968, he went to Sullivan County Community College. He studied education, got an associate degree by 1970, and even taught 6th grade in Spanish Harlem for $75 a week. But his heart wasn't in the classroom. He joined up with Paul Stanley and formed a band called Rainbow, which soon became Wicked Lester in 1970. They played at clubs at night, worked other jobs during the day. Gone even worked at a fashion magazine. He also did translation gigs using the Hungarian, Turkish, and Spanish he picked up as a kid from babysitters and neighbors. But music was where his soul lived. He tried different sounds, even recorded some solo songs under his name. All the while he was sending money back to his mother, still carrying the weight of her survival and everything she'd lost in 1945. Then there was the part of his story that shocked even his fans. Gene Simmons says he lost his virginity at almost 14 years old in 1963. He was just a kid on a newspaper route. One winter evening right before Christmas, he knocked on a customer's door. She answered crying, wearing only a thin nightgown. She was a married woman. What happened next? He later described in detail in his book. It wasn't just the beginning of his sex life. In 1970, Gene Simmons teamed up with Paul Stanley, along with Steve Coronel Brooke.